Hey, this is Joseph from Worship Guitar Basics. In today's lesson, we're going to be going over how to read chord charts, as well as how to play the G, C, D, and Em7 chords. Let's get started. So, the good news is that if you've already watched the previous video that I did, you already know how to read a chord chart, whether you know it or not. So if you remember this image up here to my left, this is when we were playing the G chord. And so that actually is a chord chart of a G chord. The only difference is the standard notation for chord charts is actually vertical instead of horizontal. So it will look like this. So what that's showing you is that instead of looking at the guitar like this, you're actually looking at the chord chart like this. So with that, you already know how to read a chord chart. If you haven't watched the past video, go back and watch it because it will show you where to put your fingers, the numbering of your fingers, and all that. So now that we have the G chord, what I want to show you next is a C chord. And so that actually looks like the G chord, but your first and second fingers are a string down. So if you look up at the chord chart, if you're already in a G chord, you're going to leave your third and fourth finger planted on those strings. So leave them there. And then for your second and first finger, you're going to take them each down a string. So for your second finger, you're going to be putting that on the third fret of the A string, right here. And for your first finger, you're going to put that on the second fret of the D string. So it looks just like a G. It's just instead of up here, it's right there. So go ahead and play that. Strum once. So that's your C chord. Technically this is a C add 9 chord. It's an alternate of the C, but we can just call it C for now. So now that you have a G chord, we also have the C chord. What you want to do before you go on to the next chords is basically practice that transition from the G to C. And again, the key to making this a quick change is leaving your third and fourth finger planted where they are. So now that we have the G and C chords, we're going to do the D chord. So to do that, leave your third finger planted on the third fret of the B string. You're going to put your first finger on the second fret of the G string, and your third finger on the second fret of the high E string. The other thing to point out about reading chord charts is that you'll see there's a 0 on the next to the D string. So what that means is that that string is going to be open. The other thing you'll notice is that there's an X over the E and the A string. And what that means is you don't want to play it. So for this D chord, you don't want to play. What you want to do is really just play the D, the G, the B, and the E string. So there are a few ways you can do this. The easiest way is to have your thumb and lightly touch it to the E and the A string to mute it. The better way to do it, which will come with practice, is having pick control with your right hand. And what that means is when you strum, you're only strumming the D, G, B, and E string. So instead of strumming the whole thing, you're starting out and only strumming those strings. But again, for now, it's fine to just lightly touch it with your thumb to mute it. So now that we've introduced this chord, whenever you introduce a new chord, practice transitions to it. So starting out with the G, going to the C, again leaving those two fingers planted, then going to the D, again leaving your third finger planted, G, C, D. So the next and last chord I want to introduce is the Em7 chord. So for this, the easiest thing to do is start off from the G chord. Again, leave your third and fourth finger planted, and what you're going to do, as well as actually leave your first finger planted. So lift up your middle finger and put that on the second fret of the D string. And if you notice the chord chart, the low E you're going to ring out, so you're not muting any strings, you're having them nice and open. So there's your Em7. So from the G, again, the only finger you're going to move is your middle finger. G to E minor 7. So practice that transition as well, G to E minor 7. And what you can do from now that you know the G, C, D, and E minor 7 chords, take your own time, pick up the guitar a few times a day, and practice switching between the chords. You should do this until you're able to quickly switch between it. Something like that. It's not going to be fun to practice, but the more you practice this, the cleaner your songs are going to be. You're going to make sure you switch chords on time. So with that, thanks for stopping by.